Realize his last name is Beat Hard?
I mean, that's the only thing that I call him. So.
Yeah, it's a joke. I get it. But
it's not a joke. It's his name. Guilty Beat Hard.
That's your nickname.
I mean, with the Browns D coming at you, it might be a danger Beat Hard.
Yeah, it might be. He had a wrist injury last week, too. That was kind of the token there.
Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 14, DraftKings Picks and Preview. If you have not joined the Listeners League yet, there's no rake in it, so you should probably join that. All right, down in the description. Right now, let's get that filled up. Around 600 spots remain for Week 14, and by Saturday afternoon, they're all going to be gone, so you may as well get those now and use runthesims.com/Mayo or code Mayo to get yourself 10% off all of the tools to help you optimize and use the simulations to get to the top GPPs. All right, smash like and sub to the channel where you're here. Tambo from shipitnation.com is in studio. Code Mayo will get you 10% off any of the packages at shipitnation.com as well. And you guys are basically live every day on Mayo Media Network now between football and basketball. It's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Appreciate it. As always, it's great doing those shows. NBA show tonight. Be back in the streets there. Be back on Sunday, 9:45 a.m. Eastern. You said it. Use the code over there. Get it for basically $2 a day. You can check it all out. Get all the major sports projections, ownership, and then, of course, the Discord, the community is the best, so just hop in there.
Yeah, the one and done for golf is live now as well. It's already, I believe it's 13% full.
Yeah.
Those spots are going to fly off the shelves, as they normally do. So if people do want to get into the one and done, it means you make one pick per week, and then once you pick that golfer, you can never use them again. It's like the least intensive thing that you can do in terms of like betting, basically fantasy golf, value. Betting on golf, whatever it is. It's like $6 a week. Yeah. So it's $200 per entry. So like if you played your max of 5 entries, then it would be like $30 a week. Either way, there's $80,000 for first prize, $56,000 for second. I think everyone inside the top 10 pays 6 or 5 figures. So it's a very flat payout. So you can make some pretty decent cash here.
I love it too. And also Christmas just around the corner. I hear this all the time, Pat. Everyone says it's not like a sell, but like, oh, I don't know what to buy my dad.
Did you read that in my newsletter?
I did not. I'd actually already purchased one for Papa Tambo, and we'll hopefully see him at the top of the leaderboard as long as he's not picking his guy, Kevin Tway, but he can only pick him once, so we'll see how it goes. But I thought about that for him this year. He's always like sending me his stuff. He doesn't play on DraftKings. He's just like, I think these guys are going to do good. Well, here's your chance, Dad. Make a shot each week. Pick a guy. I'm going to explain it to him. But I think it's a good Christmas present for dads that you just are always like, I don't know what to buy him. He has everything or whatever it might be. This is a perfect gift opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a great way to, like, I did it for my dad as well. My dad can, like, barely use his phone, but it does have text alerts to make sure that you make your pick at fantasygolfchampionships.com, by the way. That link is down in the description as well. I got him an entry as well because he, like, wants to like, hey, I know that you like bet on golf, and
it's
like
a bonding thing, right?
Like he watches golf. He's like, I'd like to have something in it. Like, I really don't know what to do. I was like, this is kind of perfect.
Is your dad super competitive too? My dad is a psycho. Like, I couldn't even win a game as a kid growing up. It's like, until you can beat me, that's when you can beat me, and that's probably why I'm so competitive. But I definitely think that's fun in it as well, where I'll have one that I'm doing for fantasy golf degenerates, and Kenny and I are talking about it on the show, and then Dad will put his pick up, and we'll go up against each other and see who does better.
That
each
should
week.
be
It's kind of fun.
That should be a part of fantasy golf degenerates this year. It's like your one and done pick versus your dad's.
That'd be incredible. Yeah, I'm going to talk to him about it and see. It might be too early in the week. He likes to study the PGA Tour app, of all things, is where he finds his stuff. I try to help him out there, but we'll get him set up.
Well, I did release an emergency show yesterday. David Barnett of the Tour Junkies and Chris Powers from Golf Digest. We broke down the live stuff with Rom going. It looks like there might be more people going now, so I'm going to have to re-up that for next week. Probably do that with Feinberg and Cuss, because, you know, he's Team Live. Loves that jacket.
It literally looks like a Cuss jacket, though. Seriously, I know you just tweeted it out. I saw it on the way over. It's like, there's bad takes, and then there's this one. But honestly, it looks like a jacket. He would sit in this very chair and just chill and be very happy, and like the big smile on his face, the grin, everything that goes with it. So it made sense. The take was strong.
So we have that. Hatton and Finau are the two.
It was overnight. I saw it. I just talked to you pre-show about it. But like it said, it's like from one of these Spanish outlets that have some inside from that are saying, like, it looks like this is going to be who's next. And they already said, like, Rom is bringing people and he's got his own team. They're going to expand. I didn't get to listen to that pod yet. Love all the guys that you had on it, so I'm definitely going to check it out today. But I think that one of the things I was thinking, I know it's a football show, but just to say it quick, was like the setup of the changes. Like, again, he changed because of the money. We all get that. But he also did say from the start, I said this like a year and a half ago, when he threw the 400 million number so specific, I was like, I think he's kind of like throwing that out there as like, this is what it might take. And then also he said things would need to change. They're now saying, and he even said in his interview yesterday, that there's stuff that he can't really speak on yet, but it sounds like he might have gotten their ear and said, we got to switch to this format. We need the points. We need all this stuff. How quick it will happen? I don't know, but either way, he's gone, and I'll be interested in checking out that pod after.
I even mentioned to you pre-show that the move shouldn't have been give Rom $500 million. It should have been give DraftKings $40 million and guarantee millionaire makers for every live event. Then people would pay attention.
The good news is they basically spent the equivalent of a Starbucks coffee purchase for them, so they still have the money there if they'd like to do it. That's a drop in the bucket for what they've got for cash. So who knows? Maybe we'll see something like that.
Let's move on to the football slate. We'll go through each of the positions in terms of values, but I do want to talk about the weather to begin with because it looks like we might have some dicey stuff going on. It's all baked into the over-unders right now.
Right.
So it's not like, Texans, Jets, 33 over under. It's like, well, they're only going to score 10 points in that game. No, like that's with the shitty offense and the potential bad weather that's coming into play as well. Baltimore looks like it kind of might not be the best. Cincinnati might not be the best. Cleveland might not be the best. Who knows about Chicago? That seems to be getting a little bit better now. So do you have a strategy in weeks like this? Like, do you like to target those games and hopefully the weather breaks your way? Or do you just like to overload on the indoor games? Because there are a few indoor games.
Yeah, to be honest, it usually is the latter, what you just said. And I know like we'll still make our cases and want to build them up and wish that things go our way and still put them in from FOMO and all those angles. But like you said, it typically has been, at least the last couple of years, worthwhile to pay attention to the weather later in the season and then say, why am I going after this game and spot just because the DraftKings price tags are good and my lineup looks good and projects well when that's not always fully baked in. Like you said, the totals and stuff are baked in, but we always have this conversation of total points in a game versus fantasy points in a game. What can really hinder both of them is the weather. So I definitely think looking at dome games or spots that seem a little bit cleaner, nicer weather, all that stuff can be a factor later in the season.
So indoor games this week, we have Tampa Bay at Atlanta, Carolina at New Orleans, the battle of the NFC South. Unfortunately, all those teams are terrible, so that's never too much fun, although I might have some like Ritter takes that are going to make me look really stupid.
He made the tidbits today. They play
probably
way better at home.
They won 16-13 in Tampa last time, and that was the game where Ritter turned it over 4 times, 3 of them in the red zone.
It wasn't that also the game where he had like 27 points or something?
Yeah, I think
he played like it was like speaking. I mean, we're going to talk about Jameis Winston, but speaking of it, I think that was kind of that style of game against Tampa.
And then
he had 17 points.
And then in the later set of games, Vegas is at home against Minnesota and the Chargers are at home against Denver. So those are the 4 indoor games. But even all the games on the later slate, like I didn't see anything really that bad for Kansas City. So Buffalo, Kansas City, the game with the highest total on the main slate, looks to be pretty protected. So that's going to be a very popular game if you can fit in the pieces. But then even Seattle at San Francisco has the second highest total of all of these games, and I can't imagine unless it's like a torrential downpour in San Francisco, which it doesn't seem to be. That's another pretty good weather game as well.
I think all 4 of those afternoon games have opportunity. And it's a really good late swap slate because if you're in a good spot, you can kind of pick your spot. I will say that, though, too, Pat.
The question is, can you get yourself into a good spot with these crappy games in the early slate, like early part of the day?
One, you could just build for the afternoon and bet, like the equivalent in NBA of like backloading if you wanted, unless there's certain spots you want to go. But I think when we get to it, obviously, Indy Cincy has some plays in it that people want to get after. Sneaky Zach Moss week. Don't forget, he let everyone down last week, so now only 35% are going to play him instead of 65%. Like, of course, there's that angle, but I think the Carolina-New Orleans game has some pieces, getting some Mingo love out there this week. Some of the Baltimore guys, again, weather, but we'll see. And what's going on with Lamar and his sickness. But I don't know. I think there's going to be at least some opportunity in the morning to find Bijan Robinson, one of the Detroit backs, whether it's Montgomery or Gibbs. Like, I think people will go to some of these spots. And then if you can set yourself up for the afternoon. But even then, Pat, the afternoon is like pick your poison in the sense of everyone, but you got to go to Buffalo KC. What if you don't like that game the best? It looks like the best, but it's got expensive pieces. What if you want to go to the other spots like Denver and LA or something like that?
There's only one play in the Buffalo-Kansas City game. Just play Gabe Davis. He's guaranteed 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's right. Got to play him. And I don't know what's going on there, though, because there was the stuff with Pacheco, too, right at the start of the week, and now he still hasn't practiced.
Yeah, well, from what I can tell, based on the injury reports out of Baltimore, that everyone has COVID, would be my guess. Because everyone's just not practicing 1 or 2 days because of an illness.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to say that anymore, but it's going around. It's back.
It's that season for sure. I agree on that. I mean, I think that's kind of the part of it though, is like if Pacheco had said like something about a shoulder contusion, and he hasn't practiced it, if he's somehow out, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then realistically, though, it may end up being like Jerick McKinnon.
But Jerick hasn't played in ages.
I know, but it's just, again, can just get plugged into that role. Especially, what do you think happens in this game? I know it's DFS we're talking about. What do you think happens in this game? Assuming whatever, you want to, whether Pacheco's in or out, what do you think happens between Buffalo and KC this week?
I think it hits the under.
Okay.
I think Allen has a big game. Lord knows who he's throwing to. Like even Dawson Knox is probably going to be back this week.
Yeah, I know.
From what it looks like. So that hurts Kincaid. Not so much that Knox is going to steal what Kincaid does. It just gets Kincaid off the field a lot because Knox can block.
Right, and even if it goes to that, then you still have to worry about some of that stuff when it gets to red zone.
Red
yes,
zone.
it's variance, but it's also like, here's the guy. They like throwing it to him for the touchdowns. It's almost the annoying situation of like an Everett Parham, much better versions, but Parham gets those red zone touchdowns stolen away from a guy like Everett who can collect it over the top, little slot plays, things like that, where that's how they were using Kincaid in Buffalo.
I think you need to apologize to the people.
Oh, God.
You won $115,000 last week?
Yeah, it was pretty good week. 125,000.
125,000.
We had some golf stuff in there too.
Oh yeah, I forgot you did. You had the great golf lineup. Congratulations on your big win.
Thank you.
Again, shipitnation.com to see all of Tambo's plays. Code Mayo over there. However, you didn't win at King of the Beach when we were doing the giveaways, and people came at you being like, "Why did you intentionally not win at King of the Beach only to win the next week?"
I just love to see this stuff. Sometimes it's hilarious. The
You
takes
threw it
are
away.
just so bad.
Of course you
The
did.
take
Of course you
was
thanked
what Pat's talking about. The guy said, "You congratulated me on Twitter," and the guy says, "Of course he wins for himself when it's not for the people." Forgetting that at King of the Beach, even when I give away, if I win first for 300K and give away the 30K, I'm still at 270. I would much prefer to give away 30 and be at 270 than 100 and something last week. So
and the spot into the Tournament of Champions, which is like guaranteed
final,
money.
1 in 25 shot at $1 million. Like it's just ludicrous takes, just wild stuff. But it's what you get when you're on the internet. So.
But you did give away the 3 winners last week, so we still have some more winners to go. So check out @ToeTagAndTambo on Twitter. I assume the people that won have already been paid.
All 6, yeah. Last week, the week before, I gave the 3 Ship It Nation members. Last week, I gave 3 members that left reviews, which is key. Always leave us reviews here on the Mayo Media Network, and that was all 3 last week that I gave away were for the reviews. That was the 6. There'll be lots more giveaways over the Christmas holiday season. We do a ton at Ship It Nation. I do a ton for myself. There's going to be lots. Make sure to repost the tidbits. I just put them out there today. Give away something for that each week. So lots of different stuff going on where you can win money from me.
I think I might be doing some Christmas giveaways as well.
Nice.
So stay tuned on Mayo Media Network. Sub to the channel and rate and review the audio podcast because that will automatically put you into draws if you do that. Also, hit up Spotify this week. You should subscribe on Spotify, but I'm going to start asking a question per week to kind of poll the people on Spotify. So there'll be a poll question up there a little bit later on today. Who is your favorite wide receiver under $4,000 on this slate? Would you have an answer for that?
I don't even think I do right now. Maybe Bateman. I kind of like Bateman. I think everyone likes Mingo there. Like I said, I'm going to take a shot in this Baltimore game in some spots. Again, depending on, we'll see on the weather, but he was the guy that stood out at the top of my list.
It's the first week in a really long time that there's not one really, I don't want to say obvious play at like $3,300, but not one that just completely sticks out. Like most weeks, there's like 2 or 3. It's like, yeah, I can see that. Like, but I'll tell you who it wasn't last week was A.T. Perry.
Right. That was not, that did not work out, of course. But what about Zay Jones?
Is he below?
I thought he was 3,700.
Oh, is he? Well, like Shakir's 39.
Yeah, he'll get played just because of that game. Like,
Yeah,
not a bunch. I'm going to say he'll get. Yeah, Zay Jones is 3,700.
Yeah, Mingo and Bateman.
And Mingo, I think, is the guy, though, 3,500. He made the tidbits. People brought up stuff. He got a ton of looks last week, so I think people will be comfortable going back to him. He played almost all the snaps, had 69 yards on whatever touches, like 10 targets or something.
You know who the real flop leg is this week? Justin Watson.
Ugh.
Now that he gets 0 targets per game,
Yeah.
no one's playing him anymore.
He might be for good reason, though.
Who else do they have? They have Rasheed Rice and nobody.
Yeah, maybe. Not for me.
$3,600. Like, you want to get pieces of that game? There's your stack right there. Shakir and Justin Watson. Overload everywhere else.
You could. That's at least a good way to do it if you're going to do it, is to get involved in your game stack and go from there and then hope that it works for you.
Running backs this week. Points per dollar wise should be no surprise. Zach Moss is the top play by a pretty substantial margin at $5,900. Mm-hmm. Like, no one is deterred on this, right?
No, not at all. So, at the start of the week, it's like, oh, he's going to be sneaky, the flop leg. Like I said,
he's going to be 50% owned, as he should be.
He probably won't be 50 this week, but he'll be 30 to 35, I think, is where I would put him at.
It seems too low.
Maybe. And again, you can make the argument for that. I'm just saying when people are like, oh, it's going to be flop leg. He failed everyone last week. Flop leg is when you give up on a guy and then he crushes your soul, not when you just keep playing him every week until he comes through for you. That's not how it works. So yeah, either way, what's interesting is the other guy that pops. I'm not sure what you got over there, but like Mixon actually still kind of pops on the other side of that game. And that would again be another opportunity to get to. And he got a bunch of work last week, came through.
Yeah, There was the one piece of my same game parlay that didn't hit. I had his under receiving yards, and I think he smashed it within like 3 plays, and everything else hit. That's always how it goes.
Browning, even with Chase Brown, by the way, which I think was a giant troll by the Bengals because they have Browning and Jamar Chase. Like, let's play Chase Brown instead. And he got like the second carry of the game, and then everyone's worried about Mixon, and Mixon still comes out and gets the job done late. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and he's now $200 more on the opposite side of that game, and he's still going to get a little ownership. But
he's $200 more, and the projections are going to like him more as the week goes along because the Bengals have gone from a 1.5 point underdog to a 1.5 point favorite. So when people do their inputs on projection sites, that the running split would be just marginally higher for the Bengals now than it would have been. 3 points on the other side of the spread. So he continues to move up. Although the top 5 plays in terms of points per dollar right now, including 3 guys who we have to watch their injury status. It's Moss and McCaffrey, points per dollar wise, 1 and 2. But then it's Pacheco, Charbonnet, without Walker, potentially. And then Breece Hall, who is looking iffy. He says he's going to play, but he hasn't practiced all week.
Yes, I don't have much interest on that, but I do think I saw yesterday Walker got a limited practice in too.
Yeah.
So it's like Walker and Charbonnet kind of got upgraded when at the start of the week. It was what's the guy with the eyes, DJ Dallas, right? Just on his thing. Like it had him as people were thinking we were going to get him as an option. The Pacheco one we already talked about still hasn't practiced yet. We'll see what that turns into, but we talked about CEH or McKinnon. If they're down in the game, the reason I brought that up earlier and got your take on the side of the game, I should go back to it, was if Buffalo gets up and Josh Allen starts having the good game, I think they do start to just get those checkdowns to McKinnon. He can be electric with the ball in hand.
Just bet Mahomes rushing over.
It's possible too.
And
I don't hate that.
Just win your prop.
Yeah, I've been betting a little more props lately. I like those.
Using the prop sniper?
Yeah, messing around with it. I was showing it off yesterday on the Thursday show. It's not just Sim Runner. You get Sim Runner Pro or anything. You can get the prop sniper and get action on that as well. So, I mean, there's lots of opportunities on Run the Sims, but I do think in general, just betting these props has been a little bit of fun. And like last night, close to a big one because they had the books was no way
that game could go over.
No way these guys could do anything, and Bailey Zappi could throw for any yards, or Trubisky could do anything or rush one in. So I had some opportunity there as well, but came up just short. Ended up getting there on the yardage prop, 200 plus for Bailey Zappi. That was a nice one.
Yeah, I put in I bet 2 last night. The top 5 on the prop sniper were 4 and 1. So the same game parlay didn't come through, although you probably the one thing when you run like simulations and run projections, you don't account for, it's Bailey Zappi and he only has Ezekiel Elliott to throw to. So it did give out Zeke under receptions, which I just didn't bet because I was like, I don't believe that for a second. Although I also didn't bet the Juju overs because I was like, I've been burned on this one way too many times. And it finally happened for him. Like optimizers have loved Juju all season long, and it finally happens in one game. He kind of got it all back in a half.
Yeah, remember last week when I was at home doing the show with you before your trip, and it was like we were talking about Juju on that slate, and then comes out on the game when it's an island game.
Like that was an actual flop lag right there. Yes. Because I didn't even want to bet a stupid prop of like really 2.5 or
exactly.
Like that.
And you got to watch too. That's that you mentioned the Mixon under receiving yards crushing you with Browning, and then the under reception yards on Zeke with Zappi. It's these backup quarterbacks. It's their only option, man. Dudes are coming at him. It's like, just give it to that guy and see what happens. Yeah. Let him run with it, and if they can escape and get a few out of it, then maybe that's a spot to target the overs a little bit more, just thinking of it from that perspective.
So if Trevi doesn't play, Beathard and ETN overs?
There you go.
There we are. Or Dearness Johnson. Who knows?
Oh, God. He was out there a lot last week, actually.
He's pretty...
Or enough, I should say. I don't have his exact snap count, but it seemed like he was out there quite a bit, and even later into the game.
It's kind of an indictment on how bad Tank Bigsby is.
Has to be, because I know at the start of the season, the Best Ball Bros loved talking about Bigsby, and I haven't seen the guy all season. So
yeah, he comes in on like the 4-yard line every once in a while and loses 3 yards, then they take him out of the game.
ETN has been pretty good this year, too.
He really has been. But like when they put Dearness Johnson in the game, he's an explosive player.
He's solid. That's what I mean. That's why he has to keep Bigsby off the field when that guy's actually doing something.
I had something else. So yeah, the 2 that I bet and the one that I put in the newsletter is completely free, by the way. Mayo, Substack, and you can find it down in the description. It was just all Najee rushing unders.
What? I don't remember what he ended up doing. I know
he had like 28 yards rushing.
I thought he had catches or something like that.
The catches are fine, but it was
whatever. I know you had under
It
rushing.
was 52.5 rushing unders, and Warren's was 55.5 unders. I just played both those.
And Najee was coming back from injury.
Yeah,
so.
well, that was the whole point of like why that was the big one. It's, hey, he's a game time decision. He's probably going to play. Once they post the number, it was at 52.5, and that's what it went back up as. But now you're dealing with a guy who's injured. So maybe try to get on the other side of the Christian Kirk type deal where, hey, if Najee's injured and he takes one bad hit, he might just be out the rest of the game. So unders on that one. And it's still Najee against one of the best run defenses in football.
That's one of the things you could do with run the sims with prop snipers. If you see it already favoring something, and then you have the
information,
the no ball side of it, and you say like, shit, I can kind of combine the two together because like I already thought this, it's already liking this. That's usually when you could push it in a little bit further just because you have a better take on that side of things. It won't always work, but I do like it from that angle or perspective.
So when we get to the optimal, McCaffrey and Moss are going to be in it. And I think they're the two best plays, points per dollar. The optimizer is telling me they're the two best plays. But who else can we use this week in order to mix some people in? Maybe cheaper guys or maybe even a pivot near the top, because Eckler's getting basically, I won't say no ownership, but very low ownership based on where he's at. Kamara, it's another $1,000 to get to McCaffrey. And people will try to do that over using Kamara with Jameis. And there's always the talk that, Jameis doesn't check down to his running back, but he does. So I wouldn't be too worried about Kamara in that circumstance. And even someone like Rachaad White, I was kind of surprised, isn't kind of like, maybe because Pacheco is soaking up so much ownership right there and Bijan is soaking up so much ownership.
That's what it is.
That White's still going to be like 10%, but he's been really good over the past month.
Yeah, I don't hate the White call, actually, because the other side of it is the Bijan stuff you brought up. It's like a little bit more to get to it. But with Bijan, what we know is he's got the same workload that he's always been getting, but he's getting more now when they get into the red zone. But really, is it like it was 1 week, right? Or 2 weeks now that we're up to. It's like, okay, hopefully it continues to come true. I don't mind. I like Bijan this week. I get why he's getting some ownership, but sometimes it is worth the other side of that game and the way you set that up. I know you're going to have your Ritter takes out here, but you could definitely do that. Use White. And you're double leveraging. You got the running back against Bijan. Even if he's 20%, that's still pretty good getting White against a running back that would be 20% of the field on Bijan. And then you stack up the passing game. You don't have to go crazy. You can just go Ritter, London, and Rachaad White. And there's your starting point. And then you can still get guys like Zach Moss and CMC in there and get away with it.
The other one I wanted to bring up, because he's $5,200. He's not in a lot of projection systems as of yet because we don't know if he's going to play, but it does seem like Deonta Foreman is going to play for the Bears. I think he's going to be their lead back.
Yeah. What do you think happens in that game? It's in Chicago at least this time. So
yeah,
there's something to be said for that. That's different than playing in Detroit, obviously.
Fields and Moore are just going to soak up so much ownership that maybe you just even triple stack it with Kmet and try to find someone to run it back with on the Lions side of the ball. But that, I do think, because they seem more comfortable with Foreman inside the 5 than they do with Herbert or Roschon Johnson, where they weirdly throw a ton once they start getting inside the red zone, but they don't when Foreman is the guy on the field. They feel comfortable with him running between the tackles enough and alleviating some of the pressure off of Justin Fields that I need to get more information, obviously.
Right.
But if we're trying to find cheaper running backs this week, he's about as low as I want to go, unless Jarek plays, Pacheco doesn't, and then at $4,800, I probably would play Jarek.
Right. And then the other question is, don't these guys have all 3 backs now?
They do.
Which we haven't even seen that rotation
We
yet.
haven't.
They've always had 2 randomly, and just injury-wise and variance, it's been 2 where you could kind of get the feel, and it's like Roschon was in with Herbert or Foreman, so you could always get to that side of it, versus now we're going to see a trifecta. I can't imagine getting behind that and trying to pick through it.
All right, well, I mean, the other 3-headed backfield that I was going to potentially go to, your Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, God. See, stop trying to figure that out.
No,
it's Gus Edwards or bust.
No. You want the Keaton mask here from Majora's Mask.
But it's probably true. I'm a Ravens fan. I get it. And why you'd want him and all that. I'm saying, but the reason I would just, if you're siding with it, I guess, especially on certain sites, but on DraftKings, even the same, you need like touchdowns can still rack up. It's like, that's how I think it ends up happening versus hoping for the big play of the other guy when there's so many other opportunities. And it's a full point PPR site where you can rack up. There's definitely wide receivers that can eat his lunch that you'll feel way better about and have probably better floor upside.
Just reading the tea leaves from some of the reports that are coming out, that it does seem like they're not just going to hand the keys over to Mitchell, because Edwards is still going to be involved. I don't think Hill's going to be involved basically at all.
Right.
And Mitchell, man, this guy's so fast. Like that, you might be getting A-chain pricing, like early season A-chain pricing on Mitchell, and you would want to be ahead of the curve on it, that all of a sudden he starts getting 15 to 20 touches a game.
Yeah, again 49. Because the price factor, the spot, home matchup, all that stuff.
People are going to use Dameon Pierce at $5,000 against the Jets. I'd rather use Mitchell.
Yeah, I also don't see a lot of like. Again, I see both sides of the coin. I see where you're coming from. The price, the spot. What if they get early on them? I get all that. The other thing I don't see though is like a leverage potential or anything value beyond that. But you need points, so I get it. If you take it and you get your points, you're happy, and it makes sense from that angle. I see other spots on the slate where you can find angles where you're actually leveraging up.
So better over rushing prop on Mitchell maybe if I want to play it rather than inserting it into my DraftKings lineup.
It works for both because you have that conviction on it. I'm just saying when I'm looking at the full slate dynamics, I don't feel like I for sure feel the same way you do about the situation,
So
and I
you
don't feel like
chance.
it's going to go on. I also don't feel like it's going to be a had to have them type spot, and it could be right. We're talking about it, so it could be. I'm just saying I don't personally see it that way, at least as of right now. The other thing is we got to wait on the Lamar news there, but
he's fine.
Isn't there like the narrative? I haven't heard anyone talk about this week or remind me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was like, isn't it when he goes up against non-division teams and conference teams that he just smashes them? Isn't his like,
oh yeah,
it's like 30 plus DraftKings points every time.
I mean, I don't know from a fantasy perspective how that works out, but I made Baltimore -7 my best bet of the week because I keep saying 29-1. It might be like 23-1. He has one loss ever against the NFC.
And he's a guy that I feel like people are just done with because he's literally like Sam Howell has been beating him even with his shitty weeks of like 21s. It's like, but Lamar put up 36 once or something like that. He never does it, but until he does, and then it's like big time, right?
It's really funny, like just even the narrative surrounding Lamar because he is having statistically a down season. Although even when he won an MVP and he was electric, a lot of that, like so much of the MVP has to do with like fantasy stats in a weird way that really makes you leap off the page. I just think he's been really good this year.
He's been good enough to do things for the team that was required and still show up. Like you still remember good Lamar plays. You still remember him doing the right things in the right spots that lead. Again, I know he's playing to win a championship versus we're playing to win DFS or your fantasy leagues that you're playing out there, whatever it might be. So you don't always get behind him from that perspective. But I do think, I think he's 7,700 this week at a spot that if he, the injury, the illness and not a practice, like
the weather
just keeps it down. And it's like a guy that can definitely still show up. So
yeah, unfortunately, I think when we look at it this week, you can either pay for Lamar at $7,700 or you can get Fields who kind of does peak Lamar fantasy type stuff for $1,000 less.
It's possible. I will say this, and I don't hate that, but I was going to add it earlier when you were bringing up the Foreman stuff. Was I have a gut feeling that Fields and Moore are probably better plays than they actually are, and I don't think that they're actually going to be owned like everyone thinks.
Well, I mean, when we get to the optimal, you'll see both their names in there.
But I think they're both like, it feels like they're both like 8 to 12 range, whereas opposed
that's good,
to
then I'm all in.
Which is not that crazy when you think about it. That's what I'm saying. Like again, it could pop up further. That's just what I'm seeing right now. I don't feel like people are just going fully in on this spot to attack it. The other quick angle was you mentioned earlier about Buffalo, Kansas City going under. My lineup last week that won was 0 Miami, Washington. Like, oh, you need to have a piece of that game. You got to. It's 50-point total. I mean, or you don't. Like, it just comes up. It's all how you build your lineup. We do this every week. We try and fit as much as we can into these builds to be like, but we got to get a piece of that. Sometimes you just don't. And if that game goes under, sometimes you see these, two Goliaths collide, and it ends up being like, we're going to show them that we got the defense to step up. Guys like Chris Jones on the Kansas City side, on the Buffalo side, they got multiple options, and they pop up against Mahomes, who's definitely made some mistakes lately. You could see that game really go under, and you just need like one running back or nothing at all.
Well, the funny thing about, because it's funny because you mentioned James Cook, and like literally no one is using James Cook from that game that has the highest total, and he is their starting running back. I understand why no one wants to play him, but as a leverage spot, maybe that's better than Keaton Mitchell.
That's what I'm at least saying is if you just landed there, I wouldn't hate it, and especially when people are going to be trying to figure out the other side. If Pacheco's in, I know people just go Pacheco, but then that's really leverage because if Pacheco's in and they say he's fine, he's going to be 20+%. And so getting on the other side of that game would be no problem for cheaper.
But the hardest part about that game in general is, like you mentioned, there are so many pieces on both sides of the ball that you can just get it wrong really quickly. At least with Miami last week, you didn't need them to win it because you used Chuba Hubbard and he scored 3,000 points. But you have Kelsey, you have Rice, and Pacheco. That's kind of what we know. I mean, Rice is still kind of iffy, but people are going to use him. From the Kansas City side of the ball. From the Bills side of the ball, you have Allen and you have Diggs. And then you have no idea where the ball was going to go after that.
Yeah, both sides.
So
I
you can just be right, but get it wrong.
I'm firmly on the camp always on main slates, especially with 11 games of never Mahomes.
Yeah.
We've talked about this plenty of times.
And it will burn you once a year.
And even then, it barely does. Like, it's just another standard week. Like, I wasn't probably going to get it right even if I was on him when he had his good week, because it was like him with Pacheco and Justin Watson that you needed or something. I don't have enough of those. And even when people, I was all in on him and I still didn't get anything. Here's why. Because go look at your lineups. How many had Pacheco and Watson? And with it, just using an example, that's the problem with a guy like him, where again, people are like, but he's going to score 35 fantasy points. Tyreek last week, nowhere near an optimal, not on the winning lineups. You know why? Because 35, and everyone's like, oh, he crushed it early. He did, but he's supposed to. He's $9,600. He has to get you 35 points, but even then, you've got all the guys like the Nico Collins, the Mike Evans, the Debos that cost thousands less that go and just crush the slate and actually beat him raw points or come close or smash him point per dollar. And then you can't get all the other pieces right around it. That's why it becomes unnecessary in some cases. And this spot, even harder to figure out.
And that's what's going to happen with Lamar versus Fields this week.
If
we're just saying like raw points per dollar, that even if they both have peak games, I think their ceilings are about equivalent.
Yeah.
Fields might actually even be higher, because I think that he just is going to run for more yardage.
And if you're going to play it from that perspective, to your point, yes, is like, it's pretty obvious. It's with more and Komet, with just Komet, whatever you want to do. It's the target tree is set in stone, kind of. Run it from that perspective, hoping that that's how it goes. And then your boy Foreman comes in and drops 3 touchdowns on the slate, of course. But just saying it because we talked about it. But I think that's the key you're pointing out here, is you're still in a home game. You're still in a weather potential spot in Chicago. It's cold, things like that. And then it's the price difference. You're saving almost $1,000 and the target tree is known. So I like that angle. And like I said, and then if I think it's only going to be mediocre ownership, I'm even more okay with it.
And let's not pretend like we know what's happening in Baltimore. We know the one guy, Lamar. Do we know maybe? Do you feel good about Zay Flowers?
Not really. Like I said, like Zay Flowers, you've got the quote-unquote revenge spot for OBJ.
You have Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, and then you've got also Bateman, who I brought up earlier.
And you got 3 running backs, and that means that Nelson Aguilar is going to catch 2 touchdowns in this game.
And it's also harder on the Rams side. Like, Nakua's going to play back from injury. Like, they thought an injury, he's going to be good to go. But
every time, I love Puka, but every time he makes a play, he's down on the field for at least 10 seconds, and it looks like he's dead.
Might be part of the plan. Just plays it off that way, like he's a tough guy, right? I don't know, tough guy act, but
you know who the real tough
Kieran
guy
Williams
is? Doesn't get enough love, because I would love to see him play this week to see what happens. Trevi plays through injuries, man.
Yeah, we'll see. A high ankle sprain, man, is like so tough.
I agree. He should sit out, because Jacksonville's still like in a pretty good spot here, and maybe they can win this game with Beathard, because Beathard's not like god awful, but.
Man, it's going to be tough in Cleveland. It's literally so hard to go in. I like Cleveland quite a bit this week, even if Trevi plays. I know it's like scary because you're like, oh, but it's only this and Jacksonville's this and all that. I mean, Jacksonville, the injury was very late in the game, and Browning was keeping up with them and ended up getting the job done. So it's like that's...
Well, it was the Jags defense that kind of like shit all over themselves, which I was really surprised about.
And now the Jags offense with an injured Trevi or a backup quarterback goes up against the Browns.
And no Christian Kirk.
In Cleveland. It's so tough to play there, man. The best teams go in there and have issues. Like, it's tough.
Christian Kirk took his money that the sports books paid him to get the under in that game and leave the game, and he just retired.
Oh my God. We had people, someone was talking about like who knew that Parker Washington was going to get all the touches. Like, buddy, Kirk got injured. Like, what do you expect here? And then, I mean, it is later in the season too. Some teams are trying some things out and finding some stuff, but I mean, in general, it was mainly because of the Kirk injury. So yeah, lots of things there. I did like the take that you just had on like the Fields versus Lamar thing. Just makes so much more sense. You save the money, even if it has more ownership, fine. But you know what you're doing.
Money, and you save money down the line too. Like, it's $1,000 from Lamar down. Like, what is Zay Flowers this week for price?
Similar.
He's 5,700. What's DJ Moore? DJ Moore's 65. So
it's kind of the flip flop of the two of them.
Well, you still save money with the Chicago guys. But you also get DJ Moore and not Zay Flowers.
Yeah, it's like $100 in the difference. It's almost a 2v2. But the other angle of it, too, is we didn't even talk about, is I would definitely feel better if you are going to run it back on the other side, if you want to.
Lion.
Don't you feel way better picking a Lion? It's like it's a Monra. It's one of the running backs, probably Montgomery. Laporta's fine, too, if you want to go there, if you're not using Komet on the side of Chicago. So I don't know. I just feel better about both those target trees. Similar totals, similar game, similar type quarterback. You got running all over the place. I do like that take. I think I would lean more that way. Now, I'll probably still throw some Lamar lineups in just to take some shots because it's the Ravens and I love them, but I don't think I can argue that case any better than the way you just did.
So Wide receivers, just very briefly in terms of points per dollar, and you'll see all 4 of these names in the optimal once we get there. Drake London, best play on the slate at $4,600.
All right.
I couldn't believe he was $4,600.
Free.
Yeah, just pencil him in. DJ Moore, Rashee Rice, and Garrett Wilson are the top 4. Then it's Pittman, Keenan Allen, Josh Downs, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Mike Evans, Amon-Ra, Judy. Judy sucks, by the way. And then Debo popping back up. I like Elijah Moore more than like
The Air Yard King.
the Air Yard King, but just, I mean, as someone who owned, was it last year or the year before? Whatever the year Elijah Moore started going off when Flacco was the quarterback for the Jets, he just throws to him every time. Eventually, you just factor that in. It's like, oh, first look is going to be Elijah Moore every single time. And I don't think Amari Cooper's playing.
We'll see if he does. I'm not.
Even if he does, I don't care.
Even if he does, it doesn't matter. I was just going to say that. And on top of it, we're talking about Browning just threw all over this defense last week. Now you're going into Cleveland to do it, and you got Flacco with guys that he has connection with. One interesting note on that, and it'll be at tight end, but Njoku's popping in places, and it didn't quite. I don't think it made the tidbits. I saved it, and I couldn't figure out.
Harrison Bryant was a real favorite of Joe Flacco.
This is what I was going to say as well. You look at it, and Njoku's season, you're like, oh, it's pretty good. All those numbers are with. Who's the other guy? Not
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
with DTR and
TJ Walker.
And Walker. Watson actually doesn't even look at him that much, and Flacco has not. Again, small sample on Flacco, but just to note it, I thought that was actually pretty interesting.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because at tight end, and once again, you hit up the Spotify, just open up Spotify. There's the question down at the bottom. I have a Spotify rep now. He's like, get people engaged with the polls.
Okay.
And like that will help make your show more discoverable. So if you want to help out the show, like in a very free way, and we can source some information from it as well and see who's right. Maybe we can start doing giveaways with that. Like who was the most right.
The Mayo Media Network YouTube chat has been the most wrong on the spread so far, and it's just a fun game we play. We call it the People's Parlay, but anytime they're like, oh, this team's going to smoke them, lately it's just been the other side coming through, so we've been playing a game with that one each week, and it's been fun, but I like the idea of engaging on the app. I've never seen it with Spotify yet, though. Yeah,
it's just something, it's like they built out a new dashboard for the back end, so I'm giving it a try. So please help me out here so I can prove that, the audience is actually going to go in and do this stuff. So hit it up. It should be in there. You have to do it after the show is published. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. They're like, we know, we're trying to fix it, like whatever. But Njoku rates out not only the best points per dollar play on the slate at tight end, he is now projected to be the most owned player at tight end. It's just an easy fade.
Easy leverage. Just pop in Harrison Bryant.
You don't even need to play Harrison Bryant.
Get all the money,
Just don't play Njoku.
Well, definitely easily start there. I'm just saying when you can get a guy that's way cheaper, that's you can just make a case for it. At least it's worth a try.
Like Kate Otten is $1,000 cheaper. I know he put up like big goose eggs last week. Still like him.
When can we build? Because I just want to. I already have half the build done for the first build we got to do. It's Ritter. It's London. It's somebody else, and then we got to put either White or Otten.
I don't think that we need to triple stack the Falcons.
No. I'm saying him with London.
Yeah.
And someone else, whether it's White or Otten.
Oh, okay.
You round it out. You get a little
or Evans.
Or Evans. But then I mean, you're leaning heavily to like the Baker side of it. Because if you think Evans and Otten are pretty good, Otten's cheap. You could easily go Baker, Evans, Otten with London on the other side, and you're just as fine. You're in good shape.
I don't know. Maybe we have to get into some
I do got to look at that one. That's actually because he just loves Evans. Like Godwin literally got one play last week. I needed that too, by the way, for my lineup.
You had Godwin?
I thought like I had Hubbard with Godwin. Like that was kind of
so that end around touchdown is what won you the money.
I don't know who won me the money. It was I'll tell you the most insane part. Not to keep going on it, but this is like I just talk about like getting lucky at the end. You need things to go your way. I needed a 2-yard touchdown from Devontae Smith. You know what team he plays for? The Eagles. You know what play they run from 2 yards, 1 yards, everything for as many times as they need it? I have no clue why they didn't just push it in twice. Instead, they threw him a touchdown, but I needed that one, so I have to be very thankful for that moment because that was awesome.
I ended up, I lost money last week because every periphery play that I had was terrible. Like the two main builds, actually the three main builds that I went with, because I played three, I played a 200, a 150, and a 100. So the three, and I think I entered those in the Pat Mayo Experience Open as well, which you can get down in the Listeners League right now, down in the description. But I had a Purdy stack with Debo and McCaffrey and Devonta Smith. I had a Hurt stack with A.J. Brown, Debo, and Devonta Smith. And I had a Minshew stack with Pittman and, who was it? DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. Just a mini one. So those are my three big ones. And all those guys came through. I barely ended up in the cash line with some of them because the rest of my plays were so terrible.
It's how it goes. It's just random. But you need, again, you talked about like Hubbard goes nuts. The one thing about that was, and I didn't even check that for this week with our Bijan conversation, like is Tampa Bay still missing those guys? Because Tampa Bay was missing dudes last week on their D that opened up the opportunity. Not to mention the hope was also with both Hurst and Tremble out that you could see Hubbard, who with the new coach had kind of got more work the week before. Sanders was kind of out. There was a lot of things actually in his favor that a lot of people weren't talking about.
They were, but
take the risk.
But I wouldn't even pretend Chuba got the workload. But I wouldn't just say watching the game and even looking at his box score afterwards that he had a good game. But he was pretty ineffective. And Carolina was like, you know what? Bryce Young, you're not passing anymore. We are just going to run so you don't throw pick sixes.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the break you get that falls in your favor.
Yeah.
But I think like there was stuff going in, and I wonder about Tampa Bay this week. We'll keep an eye on it for Sunday, 9:45 a.m. Eastern here on the Mayo Media Network. We'll do that show and have the updates. But I do think little things like that people just don't pay enough attention to, and usually the books don't pay attention to it either.
Optimal lineup from runthesims.com right now. Justin Fields is the quarterback. Zach Moss and Christian McCaffrey are the running backs. DJ Moore, Drake London, and Garrett Wilson, don't love that, are the wide receivers. Cade Otton is the tight end. Rashee Rice is the flex play. And the Browns D is the defense because Browns D is going to be 100% owned.
Is Garrett Wilson going to be owned?
I don't think so, no.
Because I don't believe that one either yet, but maybe he will be. But the one note
I don't have him being owned. I just have him as like he rates out. It says he's going to be 18% owned. I just don't see that.
I don't love that if he is, just because then it gets a little bit, that's too much. But I will say, like you said, I don't like that. And really, he made the tidbits. He's been actually way better. And with Zach Wilson coming back and everything going with it, he's getting like 12 to 14 targets. Like this looks like PPR heaven right here. Drake London, Garrett Wilson, and DJ Moore. These guys could just get peppered. And that's a nice little setup. You still have Zach Moss and McCaffrey. You've got Fields in there to go with DJ Moore, who probably has the most touchdown upside of these guys if it works out, with the best quarterback attached to him. And then you liked Cade Otton. You mentioned it already. Rashee Rice is a way to get in there that's kind of leveraging whatever people end up doing with the running backs and maybe could swap to.
Yeah, and it gives you $5,400 to play around with in the late set of games. Like if Pacheco is declared out, you can move that to Jarek and just leave some money on the table if you want.
I was just going to say, how much is Jarek and him? Yeah, so Jarek is $4,800 and Clyde is $42,000, so you have money to mess around with. But then Cleveland D, probably a spot where they're over-owned, but for whatever reason, it means obviously can still come through. It's a really good spot. I think either injured Trevi, like you call him, or the other guy, if you got what is it again? Beathard.
Beathard.
People say that. I don't want to do that one. I'm not 16 years old anymore. But did you realize his last name is Beat Hard?
I mean, that's the only thing that I call him. So.
Yeah, it's a joke. I get it. But
it's not a joke. It's his name. Guilty Beathard.
That's your nickname.
I mean, with the Browns D coming at you, it might be a danger Beathard.
Yeah, it might be. He had a wrist injury last week, too. That was kind of the token there that people were getting after. But still, I think Cleveland D is fine in this because I don't see a lot of people getting after a lineup like this anyway. Besides the obvious running back plays and stuff, I just don't see this being heavily owned.
I like this. Out of all the optimals we've done all season long, this is actually my favorite. And it even comes with a Fields more stack in it.
Yeah. You can mess around with it more, but I'm saying I honestly think for something like this, it's 11-game slate. You're racking up the points. This is probably one of the better optimals that we've seen spit out. That looks really good on paper. Now, that doesn't always work out, obviously, but it looks good and it makes sense.
So do you want to continue with this and call it a field stack, and we'll build one of those out for that game?
We can, yep.
All right, let's do that. So I have the optimal plugged back in, and we'll build out the field side of this game. Do you have a lot of interest in the passing game for the Lions?
No.
No. Okay.
I would like, obviously, I'm on St. Brown.
Sure. What about Laporta? I think in a game where we don't know about the weather, but it seems to be getting a little bit better, little Carney-hand Jared Goff probably isn't going to be airing it out to Jameson Williams 60 yards down the field. No. I do think that the shorter A-dot, more explosive after the catch type stuff for Amon-Ra and Laporta makes more sense here. That I just don't think a lot of Fields more Laporta is going to get played.
I don't either, but I also like I like Hawkinson $100 less a lot more.
Okay.
Dobbs is back. We didn't even talk about that game yet, but I think for 6,000, can't imagine there's going to be much ownership on Hawkinson, and he looks pretty good to me.
I'm going to play Zach Moss in 100% of lineups, so I'm just going to leave him in all the lineups that I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Fields, Moss, and Drake London. I don't know, why did Drake London? DJ Moore. Drake London, man, that price is so good. Really He's going to have like one catch for 3 yards, but it's a really good price.
Well, wait till we stack it up. Then we'll see how it really goes. So what do we got? Fields, Moore, and Moss.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you want to go from here?
What do we want to do on the Lions side? Do we want to do Amon-Ra? Because you like Hawkinson better than you like Laporta, although it correlates a bit more. Or do you want to do double tight end? Go Kmet and Laporta, and there's our stack.
That's true. We could try that one.
Because
At least then I'd feel like we're doing something. Like that's, a setup that's going to be unique. It's fun. It still makes sense. You're in the same game environment. Like I'm good with all that. So we set that up.
Let's take a look at some of the defenses below the Browns, because the Browns are going to be the default D that we probably build with. Or it's only because they're in not only a great spot and back at home. This pricing came out before Lawrence got hurt, so they would be $4,000 if we knew that Beathard was playing beforehand. Now we don't know for sure that he's playing. It could be a gimped up Trevor Lawrence. So it's still a great play. Is there anyone below them that you do like though? Like, what about Jets D against Houston?
Either or. I mean, Stroud is actually pretty good. I kind of liked Atlanta D versus Baker. Baker's just tossing a ton still right now, and he can obviously make mistakes. He's looked better as of late, but talking about a guy that could come back down to earth, I think Atlanta is interesting. I do like New York there that you mentioned, the Jets, and then also dropping a little further down. I think if you're not even going after that game, just landing on KC or Buffalo and hoping that they come through, I'd probably prefer the KC side more.
That's an interesting one where there's your leverage in the game. Like, I'm just not playing. Like, I don't have room to play any of these guys. I'll play KCD at $2,600 and save all the money.
Like, Josh Allen's a turnover machine.
I had not heard that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it is definitely true. So, but either way, I like I obviously like their D anyway. Chris Jones is just a beast. Get after them that way. They are at home. They got something to prove. They're the favorite. Maybe Buffalo shows up, but I think if you're not getting to it, I have no problem landing there.
So, in terms of ownership right now, very early on a Friday, so a lot of things can change. The Browns D rates out number 1 in terms of ownership. Then the Ravens, Texans at $4,000. That seems
excessive.
A bit much. Colts, Niners, Chiefs. Now we're down to like 5-6%, like whatever. Chargers, Falcons. Now we're at like 3%. So the big ones that are coming in through are Browns, Ravens, Texans. I don't think I'd pay $4,000 for the Texans D. I get it. I'd just rather play the Jets. Like the Jets have basically embarrassed every quarterback. Good quarterbacks who have come into New York all season long.
That's the thing about the Cleveland spot, and you get a similar spot realistically in New York. Stroud has been incredible. I get it, but I'm just saying he's also now down pretty solid weapon. Again, Tank Dell. I know he's shown it in other spots with the other guys with Collins, and now I think Noah Brown's good to roll, so we'll see what happens there. But in New York makes the difference, right? Like that's definitely something, and that's one spot that no matter how much you want to make fun of their quarterback situation, you can't really make fun of their defense.
Very few people are playing the Vikings defense at $3,100, and I think that they are in a very, very good spot as well. Aiden O'Connell very poor against the blitz. Who's the team that blitzes the most in the NFL? The Minnesota Vikings.
I think I saw that one too, actually. And then somebody said that they blitzed a lot at the start of the season and not so much lately.
They're blitzing less than they did at the beginning of the season. They're still number 1 in blitz rate over the past 4 weeks.
So I like this show. We get to talk through it and figure it out. So that's good. I like them too. They're a good pivot there as well that I agree with. And you don't really need to say like, if them, then what else? You can just play them. They're $100 more than Cleveland. Play them there, and you've got a little bit of leverage that way.
So looking through the pricing at defense right now, I'm gonna slot the Jets into this one just to get a little bit wonky here and a little bit different. However, if I wasn't using Fields and Kmet and DJ Moore, I do think the Bears at $2,400 is a great play. Like if you want to save money, they're the cheapest defense. They just embarrassed the Lions offense 2 weeks ago in Detroit. Now you get the same matchup, but in Chicago in worse weather with a guy who's historically way worse outside.
Yeah.
Give me that again. And their pass rush, since they got Montez Sweat, is actually really good.
Yeah, I like that. And they're cheapest, right? Like you said, too. So it's just something you
But
can
no
throw
one's
in
using
there.
them.
Yeah.
Which I found really surprising. Like, didn't we just watch the games? Are we not film watchers? Didn't they
I
just
think
turn
it's
over Josh Dobbs 4 times?
It's more because 25 to 31 has tons of options. Like I said, I guarantee you people just land on KC and Buffalo. Small percentage overall, but because if they're not doing something there, it's just natural now to like land in that spot. You say, okay, I'm not playing anybody from that side. I'll just roll it. So Kansas City probably picks up some steam, but most people are going to land in that 29 to 31 range where you have 4 or 5 options or 3 or 4 options.
So we have a running back and 2 receiver spots to fill. $5,800 remaining per player. What do you think that we do here? Do you want to go to McCaffrey? Or do you think that there's another, not an equivalent option to McCaffrey, because there is no equivalent option to McCaffrey, but is it worth saving the money there in order to get 2 receivers that we like a little bit more?
I'm trying to get to a dome Here's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, so
I'm like looking at like White and London or something like that as like the next stop because we're really outside for this one right now for the most part, right?
52. Who's a $5,200 running back? Foreman, Herbert, Pierce, Mitch. Keaton Mitchell. He works perfectly for me, so I can just play that one with Keaton Mitchell in this lineup. I was thinking London and Evans against each other, but if you want to go London and White, that probably makes more sense.
I like that more, yeah. I like your White call because it's doubling down, right? Like I said, you're going up against, and you could even see Atlanta D get picked up some places too. So if you go White, he is $6,800.
So that's $6,100 for a wide receiver is what we would have remaining.
Cortland Sutton.
Which I think is good.
He's really good.
Cortland Sutton scores fantasy points. I gotta see his game log here. It feels like he just scores a touchdown every week now.
He's definitely. I think he's got the.
He's scored a touchdown in 6 of his past 7 games.
Yeah, and I think on the season he's like 11 of 12 or something like for the games played. Or
the problem is he is not going to break a slate for you, even though he scored in 6 of 7 weeks: 15.7, 9.1, 16.6, 18.3, 10.9, 19.6, 14.6. He hasn't scored over 20 points, and he catches a touchdown every game.
It's the same when you look up Russell Wilson. It's like they're always like that one. If they just got a 2 touchdown game, you would see Russ and him both have like that 25, 27 point type game.
But they don't get it.
But they never end up getting to it. That's the issue.
So is that a limiting factor on him? Do you think? Like, should we find what about Gabe Davis? $5,800 as a one-off, 4 touchdowns. Write it down.
I was trying to look up other options here, but like. If you go with 49, you go up 1. Yeah, it's not much else you can do here. But I do think being in that dome was a key piece when you're already outside so heavily on this one. But I don't see anything else that stands out. Sutton definitely can be limiting, though.
Like, would you rather play Sutton or Gabe Davis as a GPP flyer, as a one-off? Because that's all we're looking for here.
I'd rather get Laporte out and see what happens when I go to Amon-Ra.
All right, well, I'm going to change this then. I'm going to take out Rashad White. I'm going to play Mike Evans. And I'm going to play Keaton at running back.
I think I'm just going to play like something better.
So I'm going to enter that one, and then we can get rid of Laporta in the next one, and then reconfigure it. So we'll get rid of Laporta, and we'll get rid of Mitchell and Evans and London, and we'll keep in Fields, Moss, Moore, and Kmet. Or do you want to get rid of Kmet too?
My thing is like if Clyde plays, he's 4,200.
That's difficult. Like that's a late swap. We're not going unless he is ruled out later on today. We are not going to know until 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday.
That's what we have to find out. I just will say, like,
that's a keep it in the back of your mind type thing. But I don't think that's anything we can build for. Right
I've
now.
got a version of that lineup that's 5 points off the optimal with Clyde projected for almost nothing, because I can get to Amon-Ra, take out Laporta, and then I land on the Kansas City D and CEH.
Is Clyde your flex in that situation?
Yep.
Okay,
so I go Fields, Moore, Kmet with Amon-Ra as the run back. I've got Rashad White with Drake London as a secondary stack. We get your lock play, Zach Moss.
You said London, right? Yeah, London.
Yeah, with White.
And then it's Chiefs D.
With 4,300, which right now is CEH, but also...
But we have moves in that game. So if CEH doesn't go...
You can go with your boy Justin Watson,
You can go with Shakir if you wanted to, just to get someone in there.
Yeah, Shakir, Watson, swap the D up. You can do a couple different things there, so... Well, what would it be? 39 and 3? Is that right? You're just off.
So you can actually get to $4,300 if you wanted to. So that would leave us in the range. If I just go to run the Sims and take a look at all flex options, that would be a part of the late slate and look at points per dollar. Even actually, you know what? I'm just going to click on all of these games, the late slate of games. And I'm just going to go ceiling projection and try to take a look at anyone who falls into that category. Who's the best ceiling play at that price range? Michael Meyer at $2,900 and Parham at $3,200. Shakir, $39.
I think, yeah. So you have Shakir, you have your boy Watson. You got other options.
So the two best plays, ceiling projection, that you could swap onto if Pacheco plays and Edwards-Helaire doesn't. The number one play is actually Gerald Everett at $3,400, who I do like this week. Jackson Smith and Jigba at $4,100.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're looking at Parham, Michael Mayer, and Shakir. The next
I would just use Smith. I didn't realize he was. I thought he was more than 4,100. Yeah, that's a great play. I like him quite a bit, actually. So, yeah,
So if you just sub him in right now, so you just ran this optimal with Clyde Edwards-Helaire as your flex at 42. What if you just swap him out and swap in Jackson Smith and Jigba? Does that give it better than the optimal?
Yeah, I'm 3 points better than what the optimal was on these projections.
Okay. So we're around there.
That's a good point. Like, you can also just start with JSN and then
I'm actually going to put that in because I'm going to forget to late swap. So
yeah, well, that you put that in, and then if you get it, like
then I can late swap if I remember.
If you wanted to or whatever, right? There's other angles you can take too. I'm just saying that's the difference maker in a lineup when you're switching it from a 2 tight end build where Laporta is 6,100 and there can be options at 4,100 that can get to him or 4,200 that can end up being really good plays or point per dollar plays that allow you to get up to a guy like Amon-Ra on the other side.
So it's very doable with Fields.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we like Fields. Where do you want to go to next? Do you want to do the Ritter? Do you want to build up both sides of that game, see what it looks like?
Yeah, let me do the Ritter side first for what I had in mind. So it's Ritter,
Timbers.
Moss, McCaffrey.
Ritter, Moss, McCaffrey. I like this lineup already.
London.
Ritter, Moss.
And then I want to go with your Otten call because I just want to bury the tight end spot here, and I don't love tight ends. So
it's $3,100. Like, what is he really like? If he can somehow catch a goal line touchdown, like 2 for 19 and a touchdown, you're fine.
Right.
As long as Kelsey doesn't score 48 points.
And what was the other dome spot that you liked? You said like somewhere indoors or nicer weather that you were like, we could get some stuff from there as well. Like, man, what was it?
Who knows what I say?
All right, so let's look at it from this perspective. Plug in Cleveland D, and we can swap that to Minnesota, the Jets,
whoever we want. We're not using the Bears D now. Can we use the Bears D?
If you want.
I
D
do.
should actually be last. I'm just saying, like, I was just that. I guess don't even put a D in. Just put.
I was gonna say,
what do we want to go to next?
But I objectively like the Bears defense.
So you might land there. But what would that get you then? Like, do you want some of the Buffalo KC game? Do you want something from the San Francisco Seattle game? We already have McCaffrey. You could put JSN in. Like, you could do other stuff with this lineup. I just don't know where else you want to go after this or who are some of the other options that you love.
Okay, do you like Carolina and New Orleans at all? Or do we have way too many
It's
NFC
like Mingo, and then, no, that's fine. Mingo and...
Like, we already have $5,500 left per player, and if we do use the Bears D in this situation...
We have money is the point.
Get
that's why I said it doesn't really matter if you plug in Bears D because we know it just gives us more money. But where do we want to spend the money is the real question.
Well, I don't know. You tell me. You're the one who wins $100,000, not loses money every week.
Yeah, I'm just thinking when we're already on this spot of the game, like you already have
Pittman?
Zach
Pittman's
Moss.
good.
Do you want anything from the Cincy side with Browning?
Not really.
And if you were to go to Buffalo, Kansas City, who are the guys? You said Gabe Davis earlier.
Yeah, Gabe
Davis. Rashi. Let's do that.
What's that?
Gabe and Rashi Rice.
Okay, so we'll run those two together. Now we have a D and a flex, 5,500.
Well, I put in your D that you liked.
So we put in the Bears. So we have 8,600. We almost got to the very top.
Keenan Allen.
I don't love Keenan Allen this week.
Neither do I.
How about Justin Jefferson? I hear he's good.
He is good, and he's back.
It doesn't seem like anyone's using him.
What about...
I'd say we use Justin Jefferson.
He's fine.
He's great.
I like Lockett and then move Gabe Davis up to Diggs. That's better.
I don't love Lockett.
Doesn't matter. It's like you're plugging a guy in, though.
I guess so.
He's opposite of McCaffrey, I'm saying. Like, if you're not going to JSN, you're not going to Metcalf. I like Diggs way better than Gabe Davis. That would be my point.
Well, yes.
And then I just don't care on the other side.
So but I would say, like, do you like Gabe Davis and Jefferson more than you like Lockett and Diggs?
Well, Jefferson's quite unknown. Like, if I'm playing Jefferson this week, I'm playing Dobbs. Sorry, let me rephrase this so I'm very transparent.
You're not.
When I'm playing Jefferson this week, it's going to be with Dobbs because I'm doing that. So that's, to be clear, I'm going there, but that's why I brought up Hawkinson earlier. Like, I'm playing Dobbs this week against
That's a good flop leg.
Vegas.
In reality.
It's a good spot. Like, I like it. I think Jacobs gets overlooked. I think Devontae Adams is cheap on both sides. He's overlooked. I think that's a spot you can go to this week that, but it's only a 40 total and it's right beside the 47, the 43, and the 47, but it doesn't matter. I need fantasy points, not real points. I'm not betting overs. I'm playing DFS. That's the difference. So I'm saying that's why my issue with Jefferson there, he can get there. He's obviously a great play on paper. I'm just saying I don't really care about the thing like Lockett. I like guys like him. I like JSN as a one-off or as a secondary stack with CMC. I like Metcalf, but I probably prefer to have Metcalf paired up because what do we see when he gets his big game? It's a 3-touchdown game. Guess what that's going to mean for his quarterback? So I like Lockett as a guy that can just get there, but you can mess around with it too, Pat. You can change to
Yeah, so we have $0 left. So we have 5,600 max for a flex. That means we could go with Hubbard, Ford, Garrett Wilson, who continues to pop up, Jordan Addison, Dalton Kincaid, Charbonnet, if he ends up going.
Yeah, you could just go Garrett Wilson there too.
Yeah, I think I would rather go Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I like Lockett more than most, so I think that's an angle that I would take. But I also would I go back and look at things. This is what I try and tell people. So now I'm going to go plug in Smith, JSN, for Lockett.
Okay.
And then what does that get me instead of, like now if I go Gabe Davis instead of him, what do I get? Instead of Diggs, I have 9,900. That's too much. Now I stick with Diggs and see what that leaves me. Okay, what can I get for 6,900 in the flex?
So is Rashee Rice out of this one?
Yeah, I took him out.
Okay, and you put in Jackson Smith and Jigba?
Just to see what it would get me. Like, what do I get for 6,900? It gets me Rashad White, Josh Jacobs that we just talked about. Like, there's other options. The Josh Jacobs version projects better. If you go JSN, Diggs,
You know who you could use in this?
Josh Jacobs, it's better. What?
Brandon Ayuk. I guess we already have McCaffrey.
then I want
But they score
Purdy.
a lot of points, though.
Purdy looks good this week. Do you like Purdy?
I like Purdy every week.
Yeah, I think Purdy's fine again. And here's the classic situation, the Debo situation. I do like CMC and Ayuk better probably, but it is the classic situation where, well, Debo's not going to score 3 touchdowns again, as if he needs to score 3 touchdowns again to be valuable. It's not like he went up to 10K or something, right? He's still very affordable. So what if he gets you one? What if he catches one and rushes one in or something? Like, it's definitely possible.
Would you consider playing Ritter with London and Bijan?
Yeah.
Or is that too much?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I still would kind of like, we have Otten in this one, so that's why it didn't work actually to go to that. But how much is Pitts?
Pitts is projecting to be like 13% owned, by the way.
That's insane.
Like the second highest tight end.
How much is, you know what you can do here?
Play Jonnu instead.
Yes, and it actually works with the exact lineup I just built. So give me a second, I'll give you this one. It's awesome.
It's a Ritter lineup or is it a Baker lineup?
Barely making a change here. You're going to like this.
So
Ritter with London and Smith, and you get Rashad White on the other side.
instead of
This
Garrett
line's nice.
Wilson.
This line's very nice.
So you get Rashad White,
Yep.
and then you turn Rice into Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yep. And so you got the secondary stack with McCaffrey. You got the 3-1 on the Atlanta game where he plays better at home. We talked about it already. Chicago D for the cheapest. And then you've still got your Moss play, and the rest of it makes sense. You can also go from Chicago D now to
2,500.
the Buffalo D.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with the Bears D.
Yeah, it works fine. I'll probably play both. So whatever. It's a 1v1. You can do whatever you want with it. I think that's interesting build. It actually projects pretty close to your optimal.
Do you want to go to the Baker side? See what that
Yeah,
looks
I like your call earlier on that, actually. It's not even like you meant to go there, but just talking about it out loud, I think we kind of just thought, wouldn't that make sense, right? So
Baker's 53.
Evans is the dude. He just looks at
Yeah,
all game
77. Now, do you think you would want to go? Because I think there's many different options. Obviously, Kate Otten saves a bunch of money. Trey Palmer's only $3,200, and he seems to have passed Godwin in terms of where Baker looks. Like he's been coming, I don't want to say he's been coming on because he hasn't been. But when you take a look at what he's been doing over the past few weeks, 4, 4, 6, 5, 5 targets, $3,200. He's getting a rushing attempt every other game as well. He's not great, but if you are going to play Otten,
The thing is, like Otten, I like that. So I guess I'm torn because you and I both love these builds where we just waste all the wide receiver spots and call it a day in a game, in a dome. Like everything looks good with that. But Kate Otten, pull his stuff up for a second. If I'm looking at the right stuff, I want to make sure.
coming off a 0.
Flop leg, baby. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think he's owned. But he's got the same 8s in there that you see with a guy like Palmer, but then scroll down, he's got like the 24, more 8s and 9s, like 10, 10. It's not crazy, but you're also just wasting a onesie off on the tight end in this game, and you liked him in the optimal.
Or
so
maybe
it's a way
we
to-
don't even need to do that. What if we play Rashad White with him? It's not like Rashad White doesn't not get involved with them.
No, I don't like Rashad White. I'd rather play Kate Otten or Palmer and overstack with Bijan at this point, if I was doing it.
All right, let's put in Bijan. How about Mayfield, Evans, Bijan?
I like London. I like him. If I was just doing one spot of this, I would do Baker, Evans, London, and probably one of Kate Otten or Palmer. So whatever angle you like. You're putting Moss in, so let's build it backwards here and see where we land. And we can land on Moss you're putting in for sure.
And we'll put in Otten.
Okay, we'll put Otten in for now.
Mayfield, Moss, Evans, London, Otten.
McCaffrey, Bears D.
What if we try one of these without McCaffrey?
Well, he's just so affordable.
I get that he's affordable. Is there another running back? Like, why
Like,
not?
You're getting to, like, you don't need to get that cute. You already have.
But like Kamara's
a Baker
Kamara's
stack.
pretty good.
Kamara's expensive.
So is McCaffrey.
Kamara's 8,200, and you got to play. Like, if I'm playing Kamara, I'll probably play like Kamara and Kamara and the Saints D, and just hope that they smash them and he ends up having one of those 4 touchdown games or something like that, or 3 touchdown games.
All right, we'll plug those two in, and we got wide receiver and a flex, $5,600.
Yeah, I got 5,900 with Chicago D and McCaffrey though.
Yeah, you're right.
You got to you're already way off the board. We don't need to go crazy, right? That's what I'm thinking. So 5,900 for a wide receiver and a flex if you put your Bears D in there.
There we are.
And now it's like your boy Gabe Davis again.
Would you want to go with a balanced here, or do we want to try to get up to someone else and then pay down at another spot? Like this could be a really nice spot for your Clyde Edwards-Helaire / Jackson Smith and Jigba, whoever it is that you want to work into your flex as a late swap option, and then figure out how much money you have left.
7,700 if you go Jackson.
Which gives you Mike. You already had Mike Evans.
I would put Jamar Chase because you need the $100 in case it flips. You need a wide receiver to be able to use your flex, and you need $100 to be able to get to it. So see these little things people don't think about. You need to think about this. If you're swapping Jackson, you need to go Jamar in your wide receiver slot. You need Jackson in your flex, and you need to leave that $100 to make this be able to work. Otherwise, like, I had Jackson, but I can't swap. Now, Jackson's fine on his own right anyway, but you probably do want to swap to CEH if you get that news, and then it would give you a piece of that game as well. But if he's the starting running back.
Or what you can do.
Don't hate that.
Let's see.
That projects pretty well, too.
It's not enough money.
And it's also, don't forget, Jamar Chase is opposite of your Moss play.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have Moss in here.
So you got the 3-1, really nice 3-1, actually, with Baker, Evans, Otten. Got London on the other side who popped into the optimal. Otten did as well. So you're using the optimal pieces with random off-the-wall pieces. The ownership's way lower on this than the optimal, obviously. And then you've got CMC with Njigba. You've got the Bears D, because who cares? It's a weather game against Goff at home. Looks awesome. It's a nice lineup. And then you got...
And you save the $100 to switch on to Edwards-Helaire.
And you got to play
a
potential opportunity to get to a great... So I don't have any KC Buffalo. You might. If everything goes and breaks your way. So, I mean, this is a nice lineup that's unique, still built well using a lot. The optimal had Moss, had CMC, had London, had Otten. You got 4 of the optimal lineup plays in here, but now it's built for a tournament.
Enter.
Sold.
Purdy or Bills Chiefs?
Purdy
or Dobbs? Got lots of options this week. I like it.
Dobbs is nice, man.
Let's do Dobbs. Gus has already taken victory laps on Dobbs, and now's a good week to use Dobbs.
Is Dobbs going to show up in the game in a Letterman jacket?
Yeah, he's a Letterman jacket, his high school Letterman jacket.
Yeah, maybe.
Dobbs is 59.
Got to get Jefferson in.
And with Jefferson. Now, do we have to play Hawkinson as a part of this? Because I only mentioned that to say that this works one of two ways. Like, if Dobbs is going to get there, he's going to have to run. Like, he's going to have a rushing touchdown, probably, unless Jefferson catches 4 touchdowns. I think that I would just play the 2 of them and either play Adams or Jacobs.
I like all of it. So whatever you want to do here. I'm definitely in on the first part, Jefferson.
Yeah.
I could get to Hawkinson, but I also like Adams. I also like Jacobs. So
I like Jacobs.
Let's do what you like best here, because I like it all, so I don't care. But
Dobbs, Jacobs, Jefferson.
Ooh, baby.
Zach Moss.
Triple J.
Yeah, Triple J.
Josh, Justin.
Zach Moss.
Zach Moss.
Bears D.
Lock play. Moss. Lock play. Bears D. You said, right?
Well, that's not a lock
No,
play, because I will use Browns D as well.
Chicago. Okay. What else?
So now we're at 5,100. So do we just cheap out and go with Otten?
Otten, London.
So the other one...
Dome plus optimal plays, because we're already way off the board.
But here's the thing. We don't need to use Otten, because I don't want... Because, I don't really change all these lineups afterwards, after we go and do it. So I'm going to use Gerald Everett in this one, because I like Everett in that game against the Broncos. It's indoors, $3,400, and he rates out better than Otten does in terms of points.
I'm just going to be honest with you. You're my friend. This is what you always do, and I love you, but this is like the thing. Like, you're already so far off the board, and then you just decide like your random play that is good. I like I like Everett, but let's use Everett when it's a time to use Everett. So let's do this then.
But what's the difference between him and Otten? I'm just kind of breaking
Probably
up,
nothing, but
do
I'm
I
saying,
need to have 100% Kate Otten?
No, you don't. And I know that's what your thing is. You're thinking about it out loud, but everyone watching, trying to get better at their game and all this, I'm trying to help, is like saying is like, that's what you, like, people get off the board already. You have a stack that like nobody is on: Dobbs, Jefferson, Jacobs. And you can just piece it together. What the lineup we just did was one of the best examples we've probably done all season. Is because it was 4 of the optimal plays with a massive flip when it came to how the lineup looks and how it's built for a tournament to have opportunity there. So I think that's just what I would say is like, let's look at it first with like London and Otten and see what it does. And then let's flip it to something with your Everett take. Who do you like from the Denver side when you just talked about Sutton being capped?
No one.
Do you like Javonte Williams?
Not really.
So we could just play him as a one-off too, as Everett. But
Yeah, I was just thinking about punting tight end. Like because Otten is only in there to punt tight end because he's so cheap.
Right.
Everett's also a punted tight end. He's $3,400. Was sort of my logic behind it to break up how much Otten I seem to be playing.
yeah, I'm trying to see if we have like another angle in with what we already had and liked. So who's
It would be Sutton over Garrett Wilson, but I think I've kind of talked myself out of Sutton.
and I don't hate that side of it. I get where you're coming from there because you're looking for ceiling. So
Now, okay, let's just use Otten and London because we keep jamming them in.
Yeah.
So now we have 6,350 left for a wide receiver in a flex.
who's the guy that we said earlier at 6,900? Did we already? Oh, Ayuk or Debo?
You can go Christian McCaffrey, Mingo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's actually it. We didn't have McCaffrey in this one yet. So here's the first interesting take I had on this one was if you go London, Otten, you can get your boy Gabe Davis with Ayuk, where you have 2 ceiling dudes that are super risky.
You know what? I like that. You know,
But you're also leveraging the CMC side of things where you're not playing CMC, so you land on Ayuk, and Ayuk could be Debo if you wanted him to be Debo as well. But I think that's kind of interesting in the spirit of just my previous rant and not going too crazy, though I would like to see what the CMC version looks like.
So it's CMC Mingo. So I just played that one.
Pretty sweet, too, actually. I kind of like that one.
So we can go Ayuk.
And that projects way better, by the way, almost 10 points better.
Well, it has McCaffrey in it.
Yeah, but it should. But that's again part of my point that I was making. Not just you, it's more for everybody listening and learning. I just try and say
No, you meant to bully me, and you succeeded.
I'm getting you back, Pat. You know what? We read on the Thursday.
I was reading the comments from someone. Just periodically, someone will go like that video, and it'll pop up in my notifications, and I'll read the stuff on it.
It's so good.
Who knew? That would be the beginning of a very fruitful relationship between us.
It like shut down for a little bit. I was like, I don't think he's ever having me back. He was like nice about it, but it was also like, all right, but that's still not good for the show.
I told you the moment that show ended that this clip is going to be something that people will actively, and they're still watching it 5 years later.
2019 is wild, is when it was. That's crazy to think it's been like we're already coming up on 2024 here, so it's pretty wild to think back to that. But it just goes to show you got to put the work in, man. Everyone, they want to sign up today and win all the money tonight. It's like if only it was that easy. It's the same thing when it comes to everything else. You got to put the work in.
That was such a hilarious moment.
Incredible moment, and that was because I was so geared up for you. Like I really crushed the first. If someone watches that, they only see that clip. It's unfortunate because the first part of the video, I'm crushing. I'm doing well. I got ahead of myself. I was like, he's going to ask it the exact same way. I'm not the good host or anything then yet or anything, so I'm not thinking ahead. And I'm like, I'm going to have my plan ready. And then I was just shell-shocked, punched in the mouth, Mike Tyson style, just done.
And poor Ross is just sitting there. It's like...
He saved the day with the Louis comment. It was a Louis O comment that he got to bring back to the forefront. And you were like, leave it to Raza to settle this moment with a Louis comment. So solid.
So we got Josh Dobbs. We built those out.
I like that one. What was the other one you said besides Purdy? I know we like Purdy, and Purdy's awesome.
Let's just build a very quick Purdy.
Yeah, we should. He's going to be great this week. Do you do it with or without CMC? Do you want to? You said earlier we don't want to play CMC and everything. Do you want to go away from him with Purdy, or do you want to stick with him with Purdy?
Let's move away from him.
Okay.
I always default to Ayuk,
which I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think that he had. I mean, we just saw Debo's upside, but I think that Debo can get involved in so many different ways that sometimes his rushing touchdowns will take away from Purdy and not be there. That's just not on the table with Ayuk. So I was almost thinking Purdy, Ayuk, Kittle.
I'm fine with that. Kittle is a bit of flop leg. Wasn't he owned last week too?
I mean, he should simultaneously never not be owned, yet not ever be highly owned because he's just not that good. But he can have these spike games and he goes along with the ride for everyone else. And I mean, you have a better theory on this stuff than I do, but if you're going to play Purdy, the best way to leverage Purdy is to make sure it hurts the popular pieces, i.e. Christian McCaffrey. That if Kittle does a ton, that means McCaffrey cannot do that much.
Right. It's a situation where you want Kittle and Ayuk to get in the box. And even when CMC gets in the box, because he always does, again, he's supposed to at 9,200. Like, he needs to come through for you. He needs like 35. And when he gets a touchdown early, and everyone's like, oh, I knew it, CMC, you got to have him. And then he ends at 28 on the day. It's like, oh, actually, I didn't end up needing him. You just thought he was awesome, but he was doing what he has to do for that price tag. So, yeah, I'm with you there. JSN really looks good in this lineup. There you go.
JSN's already plugged in. Zach Moss, we'll plug him in.
It's a shame they can't just make your lineup start with Zach Moss for you.
Yeah,
like if you just, when you go
DraftKings should have that option. Like, hey, I want to lock Zach Moss. Please put that in for me.
Hand Builder's Paradise. Did you see the question last week about how many people you think hand build?
Yeah, Justin
posted it, so I'm sure you saw it. But did you have a comment on it?
How many people
what percentage of the Millie Maker? Let's say there's 200,000 entries
in terms of lineups or people who play in it? Because everyone who builds 150 is not hand building 150.
Right.
They're almost exclusively using an optimizer.
The question I think was pretty straightforward of like what percentage of the field hand builds?
60%.
Yeah, which is way over. I think the
highest
option was like greater than 50. I think, and that was like people thought there was no way. Like some people thought it was under 10%.
That's because people live in a weird DFS bubble where they think that everyone is paying $400 a month for Sims to enter lineups.
Yeah.
They're not. Most people are shitter guy.
That's the other thing too. I really truly wonder, but like I have tons of shitter lineups that I even still make on top of the optimizer. These aren't shitter lineups, but we're studio lineups.
These are essentially shitter lineups.
Yeah, we're literally just throwing shit in here and putting it in. So it's a different type of shitter lineups. We're throwing shit against the wall lineups, but I think it's kind of some good thought process behind breaking down the slate and then putting it together and building it out. So I don't know. I thought it was way higher, so I'm with you on that. I definitely agree. And there's still people that pop into the YouTube chat saying they're hand building 150 at work for showdown slates.
Well, it kills some time.
Yeah.
I want to throw DJ Moore into this lineup because we've only used DJ Moore with Fields. I think independently he could actually be very good as well. So that leaves us with a running back, a flex, and a defense. I mentioned Vikings D a little bit earlier. I want to play Vikings D in this one rather than Browns D, just to kind of get off that a little bit.
Yep.
So we have a running back and a flex, 5,500 apiece. Who's the cheapest running back you don't hate?
I don't know, but I was going to say before you did the DJ Moore thing, just saying it, throwing it out there, I was going to say to do Kamara and Mingo because it's like you're already off CMC, you're using it in that angle, and we already knew Mingo was valuable. So if you could check that one out, I mean, we could try it.
I mean, I know he's only $3,500, so it works out a little bit better, but like Mingo doesn't do anything, by the way. I know that like the surrounding stats support it, but I think last week was the most he scored in a game. Yeah, he scored double digits 3 times this year.
The problem is
he had 10 targets last week and scored 13 DraftKings points.
Yeah, that's problematic. You have to go to Cleveland D here, though, to play like James Cook or Hawkinson or something like that because 5,900 is not guys you like.
It's like playing cribbage.
Oh, I guess you could get Gabe Davis.
He could get, yeah.
There you go. That actually projects okay. Gabe Davis with the Minnesota D. You've got you kind of, it's like double leverage in a way because like I say, you're already going off CMC to use the passing attack. And then you're also saying, if not CMC, I'm still going to stick somewhere as close as you can get to his range with a guy like Kamara. And then it allows you to play some of these other plays that are still pretty good on paper. I don't hate it. And
so the other thing that we can do here with that Purdy lineup is
how much is Pacheco if he does play? 67.
Get rid of Mingo, get rid of Moss, and then we can use Drake London at $4,600. Get rid of Gabe Davis, and see what we can get rid of Kamara because I got rid of Moss by accident.
Yeah, you meant to keep him.
Yeah, I meant to keep him. So we have $6,500 for a running back and a flex now. Now that Drake London is in at $4,600.
Could put in your boy Rashad White.
We can get White. What's White? 69, 68.
And then it leaves us 62 for Breece Hall or Mixon or something else you want to play there.
I mean, I don't want to play Mixon, but he actually does make a lot of sense here.
Just play both backs in that game, especially if there's weather outside.
Yeah.
That projects phenomenally well, by the way, versus the other stuff.
Really?
Because Mixon still projects well. Like you said, it's only going to get swapped around a little bit there. So that one's not bad. And you have the stack, the 3-1. You have 2 secondary stacks, and then you land on a defense that's not chalk in Minnesota.
Okay. Let's finish this off with building with the game that everyone wants to build with. Chiefs and Buffalo.
Josh Allen side.
You want Josh Allen?
Always. I never Mahomes, especially on a main slate.
All right. So
on Showdown, I'm in on Mahomes, but even then it doesn't work out too often. We'll see.
Allen with who and who?
I think we've been on Gabe Davis enough to stay there.
All right. So Allen with Gabe Davis and Diggs, or Allen with Gabe Davis at tight end, Shakir, or just Gabe Davis?
When it was Buffalo Philly a couple weeks ago, it worked out that you needed the twos. So in the sense in this lineup, it was like you needed Davis. Shakir made that work to be able to get Devontae Smith. Technically for Kansas City, I would call Rashid the two
Is the two. Yeah, no, I would
Kelsey,
agree.
and we would burn all our wide receiver spots going Allen, Davis, Shakir, Rice.
So here's the
And
interesting
then you get
part.
Moss.
I think that Kelsey is going to be like 5% owned on this slate.
Probably.
He's too expensive. And the other parts of this game just work out a lot better. You can punt tight end. I think Kelsey goes bananas in this game.
Well, he's Lamar Jackson of the tight end position.
Yeah.
He's got a 38 in there, and it's possible,
So
but he never does it.
I
And it's
want to
one
see if we can make this work with Kelsey.
Okay.
Well, if it
So I
doesn't
think
work,
you need Shakir.
then we need Shakir.
I think so, to get things rolling. Let's go Shakir, Moss, Kelsey, and see what happens.
And Bears D, probably.
Probably. Yes, probably.
Bears D. Okay. So we have 5,300 left over. So Drake London fits into this perfectly.
Let's do that.
So Drake London.
The London Bridge is falling down is going to be playing in the background as he has 2 points
Oh, yeah. It's
on
gonna be-
Sunday, and it's just trash. But we're in.
We can play Jackson Smith and Jigba in the flex to get a running back back up to. We can actually, a running back at 7,200 if we want to. We don't need to.
I don't see any.
You got Jacobs, White.
I don't see anything. That's the problem.
Okay.
Pacheco's 6,700. We got Kelsey already, but that would be like the game stack.
And there's no one really below that we really like, is there? Do we just say, I guess we're using Bears D. We don't want to do that because both Detroit running backs are kind of interesting, but not incredibly interesting. I just wish there was another running back that I liked this week.
Well, that's part of it too, right? That's the thing. Like if you pull, for example, Kelsey for Otton and then get back to CMC, does that land you on Pacheco or something? Like, or where do you land with that? Or Rashi Rice or something? Like,
Let's see. Let's get rid of Kelsey, plug in McCaffrey.
I'm going to plug McCaffrey at
And
the
use
running back
Otton.
position just to see. Gives us 6,800, which is Rashad White. We already have Otton. Pacheco, 67 if he plays. That's nuts.
Yeah, that works.
If he plays, that works. It's Davis, Shakir with Allen. You still get Moss, McCaffrey, Otton with London. Again, you're back to a much lower end version. Now, this one doesn't actually even project as good as the Baker lineup, surprisingly, but you have Moss, McCaffrey, London, Otton, and then some plays that you like that kind of make sense and we're not on the other spots. So, it's an interesting version of it, but now we can try another one of it. What was the other angle?
Well, here, I want to enter this one, and now I need to go re-register. I usually just open up 10 of these per week.
We're going over the limit here, Pat.
I know. So I'm going to re-import that because I do want to see what it works out to be if we use Kelsey.
That's what I was just going to say. I want to go back to it. It's what you liked.
I'm curious to know if we can make something that works. And it turns out you can't use McCaffrey and Kelsey in this lineup together, so we'll take out McCaffrey.
It's just stupid because we don't have a lot of guys that we like in that lower. You need like you need a cheaper.
There's no cheap running back to
running back.
use.
Yeah. And we're not even going crazy. Like we don't have Diggs. We are using Shakir. We have London at 4,600 and Moss at 59. This is what tells you it's going to be lower owned in this spot. But man, it's much tougher to get to. Even if what's your Foreman price here?
52.
And that leaves 61.
And that leaves us Brees Hall.
That leaves us Mixon.
Oh, yeah. Mixon Laporta is there as well.
Yeah, whatever you want to use there,
Hawkinson,
but at
who
least
you
that.
like.
I mean, this is like the Pat Mayo version of this lineup. It projects quite poorly because obviously Foreman's not going to project well.
Because it's a loser lineup.
No, at least I'm saying we try to make sense of the Bears D with a take you had earlier in Foreman. Like this, the guys you liked, Foreman, you mentioned him. Moss, a lock. You were good with London. Gabe Davis and Shakir came up frequently throughout the show. You wanted to make this work with Kelsey. This shows how hard it is to do. And then the other pieces kind of just fit into place. You liked Chicago. That leaves Allen for the stack. You kind of need him. And Mixon is where you land. It could be anybody at 61 or 6K, but point being, it kind of lands you in that zone. But
Is
Kelsey hinders it.
Or we could try this. Is there a $5,200 receiver who's not bad? because we can move Mixon into the Foreman spot and use a receiver instead of Foreman.
5,200.
What about Noah Brown against the Jets?
Possible. I know some people are mentioning him. I haven't got to him too frequently yet, still early in the week, but I guess my other thing was just like if you just get rid of Kelsey, we're not trying. I know you're not.
Yeah, we're not trying to get rid of Kelsey. We're trying to make it work with Kelsey if possible.
This just proves I think it sucks.
All right,
It's too much.
Let's end there then.
All right.
It's hard to use Kelsey this week.
It is hard to use Kelsey, but if you can get to him.
Now I'm going to have at least one Kelsey lineup.
One last take, though, just quickly, not on this lineup, but just in general on that comment you made, is the key, though. If you know it's hard to use him, maybe you still use him to your original point of why you like him, but find him in those secondary stacks instead of something else. Like, again, you're switching the build by going up and paying up at tight end. He's hard to use in a Josh Allen lineup. It's not hard to use him.
It'd be easier
overall.
to use with
Go back
Baker.
to your Ritter lineups. Go back to yours. So, again, get your piece of a guy that way. Where you're like, damn, it was hard to fit him. Means it's hard for everyone to fit him. Your 5% take is probably correct, but use him in those other builds then. That's how I would think of it.
All right, that will do it. On the Pat Mayo Experience, play in the DraftKings Listeners League. Use code MAYO at shipitnation.com for 10% off everything. Use code MAYO at runthesims.com for your optimizer, your simulations, or if you just want to cheap out and not use DFS and just want to use the prop sniper, which has been very, very good, then code MAYO works for 10% off there as well. It'll turn out to be $12 a week or something for all of the sims on the prop bets and taking in all of the markets from all of the places so you can bet them. Easy stuff, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. Go hit that Spotify question as well and smash the like. And I'll see you next time.
That Mayo experience. Experience.